I'm Lowell Nottage, and I'm here to tell my story on my collection of crystals over the past couple years now. I always brought home recycling. You can do anything with recycling. But then I remember going out with my friend Luke, we would find awesome crystals. I don't remember how young I was, but I remember being called the Rock Smasher. We were at a camp, and me and about 6, 7 other people was digging at the side of this clay hill. We found awesome rocks, and they'd give it to me. And I'd lift them up and bash them open, and whatever was in them is what we took. It was normally just small garnets, and I definitely started collecting just regular cool looking rocks, but eventually I stopped because I didn't know why I was doing it then. Back when I was in middle school, a friend of mine kind of introduced me into crystals and like spirituality. He told me I should check it out before I just pushed it to the side. All knowledge is good knowledge. So I looked into it and I found it fascinating because the spiritual essence behind it was backed up with the science of the crystals, which I loved. And so quickly just started learning anything and everything I could, reading online, finding books, meeting people all around and having long conversations with them, and my fascination just exploded. One great friendship that I made throughout it was in Chestnut Hill, looking for any shop that sold crystals for like a decent price. And I came across one shop. It was Delphine's Gallery, and the lady that ran it, her name was Deborah. And I came in and I asked her a little bit about the crystals that she had in her window and the ones that she had for sale. We talked a little bit about it. I quickly realized that there was no cheap crystals anywhere, so I decided to go find my own. And whenever I found a new one that I had no idea what it was, I'd always bring it to Deborah, and she could tell me right on the spot what it was, and if she couldn't, then she'd bring it to her friend and get it tested and tell me what it was. And that bloomed into a wonderful friendship that is still very strong. Anywhere that I go, I keep an eye out on the ground. All over Philadelphia, anywhere, you can find awesome crystals. Sidewalks, parks, rivers, places you wouldn't even expect, like gravel, train tracks. It's all imported around the world, and there's some awesome stuff you can find in it. My personal collection, probably around 200. Altogether, I couldn't even estimate. To put it in perspective, I have about 8 boxes right now that I'm trying to get back to the woods, just because I felt like I took too many back in my prime, and I'd like to get back to what I took. It was probably some of the most magical times of my life. Being so grounded to the nature, literally hands and knees in the woods, just digging for hours, sometimes by myself, with friends. Sometimes people just walking by and I tell them what I'm doing and they would tag along. And it was also kind of funny because sometimes I'd be on my hands and knees looking for something and people would come running up to me thinking I was hurt or I lost my keys or something, and I told them, no, I'm just looking for some dope crystals. Years ago I had much more than what I have now just because I felt like somebody might need a crystal, let me give this to them. But I feel like it's not my place to sell. I know that I started collecting crystals because they're already so expensive that I'd hate to put someone else through that burden. If you need a good crystal, I just want you to have it. It's not something that I've made. It's come from the earth. Mother Earth made it, and I don't want to sell what she made. They're such beautiful, long processed, hard-working gems. I could definitely call some of my crystals good friends, just from the experiences we've shared. I have a beautiful sodalite that I brought on the Appalachian Trail with me for a couple of days, and just every day up in the mountains overlooking so far into the horizon, meditating with my sodalite, lemon stone, and Bogie stone, some of my favorite stones. My first great garnet that I found is someone that is very magical and close to me. My first crystal I was ever given was a labradorite necklace, and that's something that I always try to keep around me. I could definitely say that I have a close connection with my collection. I have a couple all over the place, but I have some right here that they're pretty dope, they're pretty special, they're unique in their own way. Some of them just because I've gone out for weeks trying to find and just over and over never being able to find it until that one lucky time where you do. That work and dedication and physical labor of carrying rocks all day, hoping that one of them will turn out to be what you're looking for, and it's not. It pays off when you finally got it. This big beauty right here, this is a Feldspar biotite calcite stone. It's a whole combination of all of them that I polished down in our glass studio that I was a member of. I love this. I mean, the colors in it are so vibrant. It's such a big and beautiful piece. This came from an old dried river in the Wissahickon. There's only one little patch that I've found that has these in abundance, and with specifically these colors. You wouldn't notice it by first glance, but if you pick one up and break it open, it just explodes with the most vibrant, beautiful colors. Sometimes you get chunks of biotite, which is a type of green mica, that just fall out. Huge chunks, it's amazing. I've used that to make obsidian, or I forget what it's called, permimulite or something. It's like an old school fashioned insulator. Well, it's one of my favorite stones that I have, just because I've never found anything else like it in any other spot. Another crystal that I've found is this blue kyanite. This came from not far from here, up in like Germantown, Tommy's Hill. I was taking a walk and not even looking for crystals at the time, and I looked down and I saw a blue flash. I picked it up and was blown away. I had never seen a crystal like it in Philadelphia. It was this blue, clear, vibrant color, and it had almost like long, fibrous details in the back. Instantly, I brought it to my friend Deborah up in Chestnut Hill and asked her what it was, and she knew it was kyanite, which then I soon learned that is common to find in Philadelphia, or is found in Philadelphia. I don't know about common. Another one, I can't remember where I was when I found this. We kind of went joyriding, a couple of friends and I, and as we were walking down a train track, we found this beautiful green, what I assume to be Amazonite. There's a little side down here which resembles feldspar, and Amazonite is a feldspar. It has this translucent green color to it, and I've never found anything like it. It's gorgeous. It's not, I believe, native to Philadelphia. I'd never done the research on where they were imported from. As I looked throughout it, I found other ones similar to it, just not as pretty, so I didn't bring them. The last stone that I have here that I want to talk about is one that I have not found. This is a long selenite crystal. It is beautiful, it's white, translucent with a fiber optic effect. It's very delicate, it's water soluble, and you can get small splinters from it if you mishandle it. But I got that from a Mason Lulu Temple convention in Plymouth meeting with a friend of mine. And it's a funny story. We went there with a couple of other stones that we had that we weren't sure what they were. And the only reason we went there was to ask the people there what they thought it was. Nobody really knew, but lots of people on the spot tried to find the stones that we were finding, which was a big encouragement for me to keep going out and find them. So I bought this selenite as a little souvenir to bring back from that fun experience, because just being surrounded by tons of people with the same fascination and loving what we had was a wonderful feeling. When I first started collecting crystals, I kept a bag about 20 or 30 on me at all times, and whenever I sat down somewhere I'd bring them out with me, and nowadays not as much. Spiritually, I learned that you don't have to have so many on you at all times. So now I don't. I play by occasion and what I want to do. There's sometimes I feel like I might need one for guidance or help. Sometimes I carry a couple around depending on how I'm feeling, mentally or physically. But then there's times where I know that I don't need the assistance and that I can just work things on myself and it'll be fine. I don't need the help of the crystals. There was once I snuck into a construction site where the ground wasn't shored and dug into the wall. It was like a gold mine. It was filled with wonderful micas and other beautiful looking quartzes. And what fascinated me was it was all untouched under the road of Germantown Ave. And who knows how long, but the wall could have collapsed in on us. We took our chances. I've had an interesting conversation where we're just taking too much from the nature just for a crystal to sit on a shelf. why not go out to the crystal, make a trip out of it, and find it in the woods. So I take that as a negative. While finding crystals, I would polish a lot of them with the equipment in the glass studio I used to go to. I had one stone that I hadn't found but I wanted to polish, and it was a malachite. And before I did, I told my plans to Deborah, and she told me that malachite as a powder, if you inhale it, instantly closes your lungs and you can suffocate and die. And that was a big wake-up call for me, that I have to do more research on what I'm polishing, working with, and inhaling, or letting it be exposed to my body before actually doing it. I hope that I can find a special place where I can keep these out in the nature, and that I can still continue my passion of finding them and bringing back at least one good specimen of each. I don't want to take them all like I did when I first started. And having a very spiritual spot where I can go, visit them, have that connection with them, and just kind of see them back where I found them. They're here, but they're not where they want to be. In an area like this where they're sitting on a bookshelf, they can't be exposed to weather and change. New ones can't grow from the elements that comes from them when they erode. It's picking them out of the cycle. So I want to return them back to that, but still be able to see them. When I first started, it was like a spiritual overload. I went out and found so many, bought, collected, traded, inherited. I loved it. I'm really fascinated by the scientific aspects behind it and the properties that crystals can have. I like to find a way where I can combine the best of both worlds, in a spiritual aspect and a scientific and beneficial aspect. I hate to use them for mechanical purposes because I feel like that's not where they belong, but some of them have wonderful properties that you can use. Like a bismuth is diamagnetic, it can levitate things. All metals are crystals, and those have wonderful electric and conductive properties or structural properties. Some of them give off electricity through heat or pressure. I do want to continue studying what can be done with them, but also work with them in a guideline that still respects where they came from. I think I will have an interesting crystals in 20 years, 40 years, and all the years that I have left in my life. You can take a walk and always find them. They're like the path to the end. I mean, the fascination behind them is great. Whether if you use them for a spiritual aspect or a mechanical aspect or just a hobby, there's no problems with it. There's only benefits. Thank you for listening. Follow me on Instagram. Shout out to YouTube. Douches.